Hello YouTube, and especially all you knife people out there. I have a very quick video for you today. I want to take a look at a couple of knife handles. In my last video where I compared 3 Bark Rivers, I was talking about the handle differences and kind of hoping there was a middle ground. Well, I went back to a former knife that I had. I repurchased a former Bark River, and I wanted to compare the handles for you now. In the previous video, remember I looked at the Gunny and the Bravo 1. And these were 2 of the knives in that video. I also looked at the Canadian Special, which I'll show you here in just a second. But I have another one that I've reordered. This one is an A2. I had such a positive experience with the A2, at least with these 2 knives, that I decided to revisit the Aurora, this time in A2 instead of the 3V. This one is in olive wood scales. Really do like this. The one thing I have found while we're on the subject of handles, which is what this video is all about, is that the pins on this one aren't completely flush with the wood. There's a little bit of a, you can feel a little bit of a raised metal like ridge on the side of the pin there. Nothing detrimental, but it's the first time I've noticed that on a Bark River. Really do like this handle. I thought it would be really slick, and it is wood, but because it doesn't have the high polish waxy finish of some of the other knives out there, it actually has a decent grip. And one thing I've noticed is if your hands are wet, or if you feel your grip is slipping, if you kind of lick your fingers or spit on your hand or something, you get a really good kind of grip to it. So anyway, here are the 3 I want to look at, and the material of the handles is not really what I wanted to talk about. Was the handle contouring, because I said I really like the Gunny and the Bravo. The Bravo was a little bit better for my style of hold preferences, how I prefer my grips to be a little bit on the thicker side, a little bit more hand filling. I just thought the Gunny was a little bit narrow, a little bit small. And in addition to that, some other ideas that I don't think I shared in the previous video are, and I know it depends on handle material, but I think the Gunny's a slightly more boxed on the edges. I know if you get particular types of wood and other finishes, they are rounded. And I'm not saying that the angles and stuff are hard on here. I'm just saying it feels like it's just more, has more of an abrupt angle, if you will. Very comfortable, just a little bit more square. Then the Bravo, I really love the locking feeling of the Bravo. It's really, really beefy. I feel like I'd said in the previous video as well, even when I'm holding a little bit looser to give my my wrist or my forearm a break, I can still do things like feather sticking without feeling like the knife's gonna get away from me, and I really like that. But somewhere right in the middle would be a sweet spot, and I did mention the Canadian Special blade being on an Aurora handle and stuff, and so that got me thinking. So I did reorder the Aurora, and it is kind of right in the middle. It's thinner like the Gunny. I'll just show you kind of a comparison here if I can. Try to hold these, all 3 of these, in comparison to one another. I don't think let me see if I can do it this way without getting cut. There they are. 3 of them side by side. I'm going to hold them finger guard to finger guard here in a minute, or that area. So let's take a look first at the Aurora and the Gunny, and I'll put these right about at the same point. You'll see that the Gunny wood material goes a little bit higher toward the ricasso, but there we go. I'm comparing the guard side down here. But you can see that the handle is longer and it's slightly thicker, and it's got a little bit more of the Bravo taper. There's a little bit more taper in the front. In the back, you can see the blade is much longer. Or I'm sorry, the handle is much longer. As far as blade thickness, the Aurora is right between the Gunny and the Bravo as well. So longer blade, but the handle you can see is just, a step up from the Gunny. Then when we compare the Bravo 1, it's a little bit closer, but again, the Bravo 1's a little bit bigger. So the Aurora handle right in the middle, it's got the length of the Bravo 1. If you actually compare the underside where the finger recess would be, the Aurora is slightly longer, but nothing super noticeable. The difference would be in the handle height up near the finger area. Let's see if I can show this to you. Put my fingers on the blade ever so gently. sorry for this. I'm trying to do this with regard to the camera angle and holding it flat. Okay, here we go. This is the best way I can show you. You see how the Bravo 1, and this is spine to spine, the Bravo 1 has a little bit more thickness going from the spine to the bottom of the handle. So you're going to have a little bit more girth, as I said, with the Bravo 1 as compared to the Aurora, but they're very close. They're much closer than the Gunny, which I'll try to show you here. You can see that there's a huge difference here, much bigger difference. So the Aurora kind of is right in the middle. Now I really do like the blade geometry on these knives. I really do like the shape. The Aurora, obviously more of a spear point knife, a lot longer blade, but when comparing handles, this is really a good middle ground. Now the one thing I will show you from this direction here, let me slide these a little bit closer to you. I'm going to try to get these about the same point each. What I wanted to illustrate was where that little palm swell is. Now with the, sorry, let me back these up a little bit. My board is sliding here. Okay. Here we go. So with regard to the palm swell, on the Gunny and the Bravo, it's right in the middle of the handle. And if you'll notice, it's ever so slightly forward on the Aurora. It's giving you a little bit more kind of like, not necessarily a more bushcraft force. They've got that kind of finger swell right between the index and middle finger. So it's kind of a lock, kind of comes out like there, like I got your nose type thing. Nowhere near as pronounced, but it is forward more in the hand. So with the Bravo, the palm swell is right in the middle. So the finger, the index finger and the pinky have about the same amount of traction, and then your two fingers in the middle have the swell. The same with the Gunny. Again, index finger and pinky, and then these two wrap around the swell. With the Aurora, sorry, you'll kind of see you have one and then almost two, and then the swell is kind of under the middle finger. Okay, so it is a little bit different sensation. I would say that if they were going to slip this like swell here to the front, here's a good angle for it too. See how there's this huge recess here and the swell's more to the front? Again, just a different handle design. I would compare it to this angle with the Bravo here. You can see the Bravo is kind of right in the middle, okay? So again, there's nothing right or wrong about any of these. It's a matter of preference. In locking sensation and locking feeling, I think this is really, really good. The Bravo is probably slightly more ideal for that because it's right in the middle. But if I want the groove to push my hand one way or the other, I want it to go toward the front side, blade side of my grip. Now, as you can see, the big comparison between these two is not the handle at all. The handle is extremely different, as you'd expect. But the blade geometry is fairly similar, not in overall, style, but in, well, I guess, yeah, you'd say style. Both of them have kind of a spear point. Again, the bow back of the Canadian Special can be very useful, kind of cool. Then there's a slight recurve at the base, and this one has a quicker upswept belly to the tip. The Aurora, I'm trying to pivot it in the light there for you, is a very no-nonsense straight spear point design. Flat spine with a gradual taper to the tip, almost a mirror image at the bottom, excuse me, with the spear point being almost directly in the center line with the blade itself. So these two fairly comparable. So the advantages that you could argue that the Canadian Special will present to you, again, slight recurve if you find that to be an attractive quality, and this kind of bowed back with a design like the handle of the Aurora would be a really cool knife. I think a lot of people really like that, because I think there may be people out there, kind of like I was, who really like this blade geometry design, or the things that it kind of does offer and the kind of coolness of it, but aren't sure they're going to really like the finger grooves. Now again, if you're a finger groove fan, this is a really good knife. I mean, it really is got a well-designed finger groove pattern to it. I mean, I don't have any issues with the grooves themselves. It's just that constant taper. Again, I think it's really like a pronounced, like maybe a Fox River or a North Star, something where you have the gradual taper from fat at the pommel or the butt end to the blade. And I just felt like that, combined with this swooped design on the back here, my hand was just going forward. And that was one of the big complaints I had. This boxed edge here, again, this is very hard. There's no, I mean, it is rounded, but it's a very immediate finger groove design, which is good because it feels like you're in there solid. But over time, it can maybe present some issues with your fingers. I don't know. I didn't use it for days on end. Very good knife if this falls into your categories of appeal. But maybe seeing something in the Canadian Special like with the Aurora handle would be a very interesting knife for sure for a lot of people out there. Again, just notes, I'm not telling Barker River to make one. I just say I do prefer the handle on the Aurora. This is a very light knife in the olive wood anyway. I was going to take a look at that real quick as well, just to try to do a comparison again. Let's take a look at the Gunny. Again, this one 5.3 ounces. The Bravo one, and again, a lot of this has to do with handle material, but gives you an idea, 7.1 ounces. Again, the Canadian Special, I think it was 6.7 ounces on the Special. And then the Aurora, 5.6. So the Aurora, this is kind of interesting because it's kind of what I thought. The Aurora only 0.3 ounces heavier than the Gunny. Now again, this is desert ironwood with white liners. It is heavier in the handle. The Aurora, much lighter noticing. I would think this would be maybe a good alternative to something like a bamboo. I know Virtue of Vice particularly likes his bamboo because of quality and lightness. This is a very light, very extremely well-balanced knife. I'm liking this olive wood so far. And the great thing about the Aurora in the A2 is it comes with the deluxe sheath, which fits the dangler. So I'm really liking this combination so far, and the knife sits a little bit higher up in the sheath, so it's not as hard to get at as my Gunny Bushcrafter Ace alternative. It sits a little bit lower. Not a problem to get out, but it definitely sits deeper. So anyway, so I'm really liking this. I still love the Bravo one. So one video I will hope to be doing. It's a test I'm going to do even if I'm not able to videotape it. But I really want to compare the Aurora, which is a knife I've bought for the second time. Again, first time in 3V steel, this time in A2 steel. With the Bravo one. They are not the same knife. Obviously, you can tell by geometry that they're very different. The Bravo, much thicker geometry, much heftier, much thicker on the blade girth again. I mean, that's extremely noticeable. But the handles are in a similar family, and that is really important to me, the comfort of the handle over long periods of time. I would say in side holding position, again, I'm not a big hunter or anything, but in side holding position for doing things that require a little bit finer work with the tip, the Aurora I think is going to win in that category because it's getting a little bit closer to the Gunny, which was really comfortable in side holding. It's not quite as thick, and I get to use a lot more thumb. And I'll be honest with you, side holding is where this big recess is going to come in handy, at least for me. That big kind of open area right there. As you change from locking like this to side holding, your three fingers, at least how I hold, shift into that groove, okay? So all three can sit behind the hump. This is labeled a bushcraft knife specifically in that category, I think, for a reason. This knife is very well thought out. And if it performs anything like the 3V and the A2 holds up anything like my experience with these other knives, this is probably going to be my perfect Bark River knife. Again, going to be very hard to part ways with the Bravo one. It's just a really good hefty knife, but if this thinner, sharper blade geometry holds up, this is going to be ideal for me. And in a quick recap to finish this video out, I'll explain to you why. You've got a knife handle that comes basically in between the Gunny and the Bravo one, at least by my standards and from the knives I've tested. It's pretty close to being in the middle. It's closer to the Bravo one, which is where I kind of want it to favor in the middle. It's got the kind of the blade geometry of the Gunny. It's got a very similar blade geometry to the Gunny, but at the cutting edge, I feel that it's a little bit closer, not quite as shallow as the Canadian Special, but getting closer there. So maybe right in the middle of the Gunny and the Canadian Special, which is going to be awesome for me because it's going to be theoretically very great at doing slicing, sharpening of other sticks, notching, that sort of thing, feather sticking. The tip is going to be similar to the Canadian Special if I needed to make a bow drill notch, or if I needed to do any type of fine tip work where a very sharp point would be beneficial. Again, the handles, very similar here. The longer length is going to be good for batoning. I know that from experience. Just the extra, the part of the tip having protruding through the wood. If I'm matching it up, I got about 1/4 of an inch advantage here with the Aurora. The sharper spine should be great at throwing sparks. And then, like I said, in that side holding, scenario, the Aurora has got a very good handle design for that. In the reverse holding, this protrusion back here does go into the hand, the palm, but it does so with every other knife I've tested. It's not completely straight. And honestly, I don't do a lot of like chest lever pull cuts anyway. I typically lock the blade in front of my knee and pull that way if I have to, but I just don't do a lot of super intense stuff like that. So I think this could be the best all-rounder in my book. So it may be a good long while, probably a couple months before I get out into the woods, but I will eventually test the Aurora and A2 olive wood handle with the Bark River Bravo 1. Again, this one happens to be in the Cucabola handle, and I'll share those findings with you guys. So a little bit of comparisons on 4 very popular Bark River knives. I'm not sure if you throw the Fox River in there, that could be the top 5 maybe Bark River knives currently. I'm not sure. I do know they're all very, very popular, but you've seen my other videos on the Aurora. My findings, I think, are going to be right on par with that. So again, another highly recommended Bark River knife. Anyway, I hope that brings a little bit of information to you guys out there and some handle comparisons. Again, no paper cutting, no tests in the field, just grip and geometries and angles and holdings today. So hopefully you guys found that helpful. Until next time, be safe and God bless.